Hey, what's up guys, Alex here. Thank you for checking this video and welcome to the episode number 11 of the series of tutorial on how to build a WordPress plugin from scratch. In this video, we're going to take a look on how I like to structure my initial files, all the files that I need to use in order to build a proper plugin. If you followed the previous video, I asked you to take care of splitting the generation of the admin pages inside this new file, the admin pages class that we generated in the previous video. No worries, we're gonna tackle this. If you're looking for the answer, if you're looking for the proper way of doing it, we're gonna tackle this in the next lessons. Right now, I want to structure this plugin in a proper way, organize all the files, and build the basic structure, the basic architecture of my plugin in order to accept all the things that I'm going to build in the future. So right now, if we take a look of the current situation of our plugin, the first page, it's a bit of a mess. There are a lot of example methods, all kind of stuff that we don't use just because I did them on purpose just to show you how object-oriented programming logic is used to build a plugin. Now it's the time to actually structure the plugin properly in order to build everything that we need to do. So let's start doing some cool things in PHP. First of all, I want to structure my files in a proper way. So here, I want to zoom in a little bit in these folders, and we need to, of course, to follow the specification of WordPress, we need to leave the title of the plugin and the first file of the plugin that needs to be used, the PHP, with the same exact name. So we cannot change these things. The thing that we can change though, it's pretty much everything else that we have inside our inc folder, the assets and so on. So I kind of like this structure: assets, templates, and my vendor folder generated by my composer, the index that is the default file, then the uninstall.php that is still also this one, the default file. I want to structure better the inc folders of my plugin, and what I want to do, I want to create a new file. I want to call it init.php. Just to follow the logic of the PSR4 code convention, let's use all camel case declaration. Camel case means the first letter is uppercase and all the other letters of the other words are capitalized. So let's follow this code convention. I'm gonna have an init file, and then I'm gonna create another folder called base. I'm gonna rename this folder pages. And let's leave it like that for now. It's really basic, but we're gonna extend this structure the more we do, the more work we do. So now what I wanna do, I wanna move the activate and deactivate inside the base folder that I'm gonna use to store all the methods and classes that are kind of basic. So in my case, a basic method is the activation and deactivation method, and also probably the enqueue methods of like enqueuing scripts and styles in both front end and back end and so on. So let's manage these by moving this file inside base folder, and also the deactivate move inside the base folder. Perfect. Now what we have to do, of course, we have to open this file and rename the namespace and update the namespace. So in this case, it's inc/base. And let's copy this and let's update also deactivate /space. Perfect. Now inside our Alacat plugin, let's here admin pages. Let's rename this file as simply admin because we are inside the pages folder. We don't need to repeat again admin pages. So inc pages is the namespace, and let's remember to maintain the consistency of a plugin in WordPress by always specifying the package. And here, of course, we're gonna write some code when we extend all these functionalities, but let's leave it for now like this. Okay, now we have our basic structure of a plugin that I really like. We have our inc folder where everything, all the PHP methods are inside. We have the init.php that we're gonna use to initialize dynamically all the classes and all the methods that we need to trigger as soon as the plugin gets activated. And then we can split all our classes, multiple classes, in different folders, following our logic. I like this logic by storing the base methods inside a base folder, and then all the pages related method, if generates a page, generates a section inside pages. And then by following this logic, we can extend it by creating a folder for custom post type, just simply called CPT. If we have to generate widgets, we can create a folder called widgets, and so on. So If you like this logic, you can follow it, but of course you can name these folders and these files as you wish by following your own logic. What we have to do now in our alicat plugin.php, of course, all this stuff won't work at all. Everything is gonna be broken, but of course we change all the files and the locations. What I use usually the default PHP file, that is the first one that gets triggered when a plugin is activated. I just use it to define the absolute path or detect the absolute path if it's detected and avoid the plugin to get activated, include require once the vendor autoload, and then trigger the init class that it's gonna take care of triggering all the other methods with a cascading style or a cascading type of approach. So let me show you what I mean. For now, what I'm gonna do, and it's just gonna be like temporary, I'm gonna just cut all the content that we have here and I'm gonna paste it in the init, but I'm gonna comment everything because I don't actually wanna use this approach because all these I wrote it just as an example, so let's leave it at that. The init method is just completely empty, but let's write something in the init method. So by copying basically this really simple structure of the activate class, let's write here, package is alicat plugin, this is the inc namespace, and this class is called init, exactly like this file. And here we can simply, let's leave it like that for now. Maybe let's generate simple construct that it's totally empty. So let's just leave it like that, just because we have a class and we're not gonna have any error. So if we save these, we save this other file and we go back in our plugin directory, we refresh, of course, the settings, link, and the custom admin area that we generated are gone completely. But the plugin works. If we activate and deactivate, the plugin is still there because we're not triggering any PHP error. Fantastic. So as I said, the only thing that I like to use the default PHP file called by the plugin on activation is to trigger the classes in my custom folder. So the method that I like to use is a simple if statement. So if the class exists, and this is really similar to what we were using before, and the class that we want to check, we need to use the also in this case the auto loading convention, because I want to check if the init class exists, but the init class is inside the inc folder that is defined in the auto load. So I have to say if the class exists in the inc, double /init. If this class exists, then we can initialize the class. And by initializing, and to initialize the class, again, simply write inc /just one and then init. And usually the class, when you initialize the class, you can just simply say class if you want to call directly the class, but I don't like to use the construct. I want to use a built-in method, a specific method that I have inside that specific class that I'm going to call register services. This method is a method that I like to use because I will consider all the classes that we have, the activate class, the admin pages class, the custom post types, or the future class as a service. So I'm going to create this method called register services to automatically register all the services. And in order to avoid to have a PHP error, of course, let's create or rename this construct that we're not going to use inside the init class. Let's rename it register services. And here we could potentially echo something, but I don't want to do that. Let's check if we trigger any PHP error. Yes, we have. The init register services should not be called statically because, of course, we are calling this method static. So I want this to be static because I don't want to initialize this class, and actually this class should be uppercase or camel case. This class, I don't want to initialize this class. This is just a method that I'm going to use statically in order to trigger all the other classes. So I'm going to declare this function to be first public. Even if you don't declare a function by default is public, but it's always better to declare it just to be to leave your code more readable. And then I want to declare this method static. So I don't need to initialize the class in order to trigger this method. If we refresh, of course, the PHP error goes away. Activate, deactivate, still works, perfect, no problem. So now we have this class that it's gonna be used only to register all our services, that in our case are all these methods here, and return all those instances of those classes, or return a specific method of those classes. So this init class will never get extended, because I don't want any of these thing that it's happening inside the init class to get extended or get reused by another class. So in order to avoid issue, we can specify a final type of class, and the final statement before the class, it means that PHP will not have the ability to extend this class by another class. So if you write another class, for example, another class, whatever you want to call it, and you say extends init, will not work, because this is a final class and we cannot do this kind of thing. So if we refresh, we're gonna have error. The another class may not inherit from the final class because we specify init as a final class. So this is a way of kind of protecting if you have something, some operations that a class is doing and you don't want any other classes accidentally inherit those operations, those methods, you can define this class as final. Inside here, now I wanna automatically trigger all the methods that I'm missing. So in my case, I have the activate, deactivate, and admin pages. So first of all, let's check how to generate the admin page dynamically. So let's access the admin.php, and inside here, what we were doing, we were adding an action admin menu. Copy this in the admin. The construct, I'm not gonna use the construct for now. I'm gonna use the public function register. And this is a unique name, or like a unique method that I'm gonna use over and over again for all the classes. All my classes will have always the register method that I'm using to trigger all the methods that I need or that I want. So here, let's start with the add action admin menu. And inside this add admin page, we can cut also these add admin page from here, and let's copy also the admin function. It's pretty standard stuff. Let's remove the comments. That's perfect. Let's indent a little bit. Wonderful. So here we're adding the Alicat plugin page that we were doing before, and we are requiring the plugin directory path to require the template admin.php file. That's perfect. Okay. Let's save it. If we go back in the front page, we refresh, nothing happens. We don't have anything because we're not registering. We're not triggering this register class. So in order to do it, inside the init.php, I want to first define a list of services that in my case is going to be the list of all the classes that I'm using. So let's create a public static method as well, because I'm not initializing the class. So I need to declare static method, and I'm going to call this get services. And this get services, what it does, it returns the full list of all the classes that I declared inside an array in order for me to loop inside an array and automatically initialize those classes with just one single function. So follow me on this. Let's return an array, and I'm using the square brackets because I have like PHP 7. If you don't have PHP 7, it's an older version of PHP. You can return the array, but I like the square brackets, it's easier. And inside the square brackets, for now, I just have one class that is gonna be the pages, /admin, double column class, because I'm saying in this thing, let's return the entire class without initializing the class. I want to return the actual class. If I don't specify the class, I'm actually pointing just the file as like using the use composer autoload, but I don't want to point the file. I don't want to return the file. I want to actually return the class. By returning the class, now I can use this register service method to get this list of class, initialize those classes, and call the built-in register method that I declare in my admin class. So we can say for each self, it means this class that I didn't initialize. So this self, if this class was initialized, we could use the default this, because we saw how it works and we saw what it does, like the instance of the class is stored inside this. But because we didn't initialize the class, it's a static, we're just calling static methods, we need to use self get underscore services, that is this method here. So for each get services, has, let's return just the single value because we don't have an associative array. We don't have a key and value. We just have a value there. It's class. So for each of these get services as a class, inside here, what we want to do, we want to store variable service that is going to be a self instantiate the class. And I'm going to show you what I'm doing with this instantiate. And then we can do a simple condition. So if the class that we just instantiated, we created a new instance, has a method called register, we're gonna call that method, because we could potentially have some classes that don't have a register method where we just need to instantiate those classes in order to be used by other classes or in order to use the construct. If we don't have the register method, we don't want to accidentally trigger, so we can check if the method exists, and the method exists, it's exactly the same as class exists, but we need to specify first the name of the class that we want to check, or actually the new instance of the class. In our case, we store it into a service, and the second, we want to check if the actual name of the method exists. So in our case, it's register. And if this exists, only this exists, we can call this service. Let's call the register method. Okay, this looks super confusing, I know. The only thing that we're missing is these self-instantiate, because we're calling this method that doesn't exist in our list of like init classes. So here we can call again a private in this case, because I don't want this instantiate method to be called publicly externally by any other class. So private static as well function instantiate, yes, let's be sure. And the instantiate, we're gonna pass the class because we're passing this class variable that contains these pages. And here, this method, the only thing that it does is store a service variable that it's equal to new class and return the service. Or you could simply do something like that. You could simply return the new class without storing it into a variable. Whatever, as you wish. But this could be confusing. I don't know. I always use it this way. There's not really a specific reason for this, but yeah, I like it. So what we're doing here, this could sound kind of confusing, but this is actually the same of doing this. New pages admin, call the class, or use pages admin and create a new instance of the admin class. This is exactly the same, but by doing this weird step-by-step thing, I created some methods that are gonna automatically automate everything for us just by adding classes. So every time I have a new class that I wanna create a new instance and I wanna call the register method, I just add another class name here inside the return value of my array, and automatically these two methods will take care of everything. So let's write some comments just to be sure that we have everything clear. So let's write code block and let's say store all the classes inside an array and return array, and the description is the full list of classes. Then this method here, the register service, what it does, loop through the classes, initialize them, and call the register method if it exists. And let's go on another line. Perfect. And it doesn't return anything. And here, the last comment, just to be sure that we know what we're doing here, simply initialize the class. And the parameter that it's passing is a class, and is the class from the services array, and it returns the class instance that the description is the new instance of the class. Pretty standard, right? Pretty obvious. Okay, now we have this really clean structure and really easy structure to use. So here, this class gets incorporated inside an array, then we loop through all these array to check everything all the classes. We call this method that automatically returns a new instance of the class, and we check if the register method exists. We're going to call the register method, and inside the class admin, the register method exists. We can remove the construct because we don't need to set up any variable, declare any variable, or do any setup inside the construct. Here we have the inc pages, that is perfect. We're calling to that position pages. As you can see here, I'm not calling inc / pages because I'm already inside the inc namespace, so I need to just call the actual namespace that separates this class from the actual location. And here I'm calling the register to add action and create a admin page. So let's see if something's wrong. We broke everything. Let's refresh. We didn't broke anything, and look what happened here. We activated the allocadd class, and of course the template doesn't work because we're actually pointing to on the wrong direction. If we zoom it here a little bit, it says that cannot find the template inside the allocadd plugin inc pages templates admin.php. Of course, this location doesn't exist because our templates folder is actually completely outside from inc. This is an issue that could happen a lot, like especially if we have this structure that with a lot of indented files, it could happen that it's hard to always point to the right location, the right file. So in order to avoid this, let's define a constant variable that it's really handy. And also the constant variable declaration is something that I like to do in the allocadd plugin. So right before calling the init file, let's use the built-in method of PHP called define, and we can define plugin_path, and usually a constant variable, it's always better to write it all uppercase so it's obvious that it's a constant variable. Don't use the $, that could be misleading. Always uppercase, no $, no special characters, so constant variable. Let's store the default plugin directory path, and inside here we can define, of course, the file path that we always point to. Perfect. So now we have this defined plugin path that is globally constantly defined inside our plugin. We can reference the plugin path whenever we want. So here we can say, instead of plugin directory path, let's require once the plugin path templates admin.php. Let's go back in our plugin, let's refresh, and now we have the actual template. That's perfect. So super quickly now, if I want to do the other thing that I was doing before, so in enqueuing the scripts, I can simply create inside the base a new file called enqueue.php, and inside here, let me copy the admin.php and the register. Yes, let's copy this entire class. I'm super lazy, so this is inc base and the class is enqueue, and the register method, that's perfect. And here we can close the class, and in the register method I wanna paste the add action that we were using before. And the add action is admin enqueue scripts, and I'm calling this instance to the enqueue method, and the enqueue method that we already have somewhere down here, enqueue, that's perfect, enqueue all these beautiful files here. Boom, let me remove the comments and let's indent it properly. That's perfect. Let's save it. If we refresh here, nothing happens. And if we access our inspector, we zoom it a little bit, we go to network and we check the CSS, we refresh. We don't have our custom CSS and we don't have our custom JavaScript, of course. But in order to trigger all this stuff, the only thing that we have to do inside our init file is to declare the class that we want to initialize. So let's duplicate this line. Let's put a comma, of course, after the first entry. And here I want to declare that this inside the base, I want to call the enqueue class. Let's save it. Let's go back in our front end. Let's refresh. Look what we have here, my style.css. But of course, also in this case, the enqueue script cannot find the file because, of course, we're calling the plugin dir inside another subdirectory, a subfolder. So the enqueue cannot actually use the plugin's URL to point to this file. And unfortunately, we cannot use either the plugin path because the plugin path is used only for the requires, like it's only used by PHP to require include files. In order to specify and use it inside an enqueue style, and enqueue script, we need the actual URL. To retrieve the URL, as usual, we can define a new constant that we will use in the future. So let's define again. And in this case, let's call, instead of plugin path, let's call plugin underscore URL. That's what we want. And these, instead of using the plugin directory path, we can use the plugin underscore their underscore URL. And also in this case, let's specify, give me the URL of this file. So now we have another constant that we can use super easily and super quickly inside our enqueue here by simply removing the plugin's URL and concatenating this stuff. So let's just delete and say enqueue my style or my script inside the plugin URL at this location. Let's save it. Let's go back in our backend. Let's refresh. And there you go. Now we have mystyle.css. It's properly recognized. Actually, here we have a double / that we don't need because the URL comes with the proper /. So now it's clear. And if we go to JS, we have also myscript.js that it's clear and properly pointing to the correct file. That's perfect. So as you can see here, what we did, all these really PHP related stuff, we generated an initialization file we will never gonna touch again because everything that this init file does, it's already defined here. The only thing that we're gonna do every time we create a new class, every time we create some new functionalities that it's inside a class, we're just gonna specify the class in here directly. Thanks to the PHP namespaces and composer autoload, we can use these things and we can include or use other methods inside other classes in the future. But this structure is what I really like. And of course, we can delete all this stuff. We don't actually need it. There are some scripts inside here to generate the custom post type or generate the settings links that we can definitely implement in our classes, but we don't actually need them right now. And we can safely delete. Look at that. Look how clean is our init file. Look how clean is our enqueue. Look how clean is our admin page. And of course, this is just a basic example. And look how clean is our first file. Instead of having that long, super complicated and full of different methods and different stuff all inside one single file, we can easily split everything in multiple compartmentalized classes that gets triggered all together by one single service, like service instance, whatever. We treat the classes as services, and with a for each loop, we initialize all the classes at once by calling the register method. And we can just simply specify the classes inside this array. Probably some of you will criticize this approach. I know it's totally fine, but it's an approach that I use for many years, and I really like it. And I always found myself really comfortable with this approach, especially when I have to build a really complicated plugin that has a lot of sections and has a lot of files. This approach helps me to maintain my code clean and don't worry about initialize every single class or taking care of instance or other instances or other static methods, public methods, and so on. Everything's kind of automated, and I really like this approach. If you don't like it, if you think it's stupid, and if you think it's overkill, too complicated, don't follow it. It's totally up to you. You can pretty much code whatever you want, but try this approach and see how it goes, especially when you're gonna have this plugin that we're gonna build all together. It's gonna be pretty big. You will probably start realizing how helpful is this approach and how easier it is to manage and organize all your files. So it's pretty much it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please give it a thumbs up or subscribe to my channel. And if you want, you can spend a couple of minutes on the support me page of my website, where you can find all different ways and methods to support me, support my channel, and help me to do better videos and better tutorials for you. Thank you again, guys, and until the next lesson, as usual, happy coding.